I think the background behind it is one of, we've been talking to Sport England, Deloitte and the Winter Sports Survival Fund for just over 2 months. We were told that our applications would be a combination of loans and grants. We were told 10 days ago that there would be 0 grants, but that we had been offered a loan. For us as a club, one, it's a bit academic on the loan front because we'd have to put a vote to our members for an extraordinary general meeting. We're not your average championship club, we're more a community club where we have 1,000 playing members from our minion youth to our girls and ladies, right the way through to 7 senior teams. And being honest, we'd have to recommend to the members that it makes sense to borrow money to support a 4-month season, and we couldn't do that. It just doesn't make any sense for us at all. So that made the loan, even though we applied for it, we were hoping the majority of the funding would be a grant. But unfortunately, when it became loan only, it became academic. We couldn't take it.
And what are the implications of that? If you are only offered loans, will you be able to take your place in the league next season?
Well, we started over the weekend with a Just Funding page, and the support has been nothing short of overwhelming. Actually, just way over and above our wildest dreams, with a number of celebrities getting involved that we're really pleased with. But you know, we've still got quite a long way to go if we're going to reach the start line on March the 6th. I think by way of background, obviously the RFU cut our funding fairly dramatically by 75% over the last 12 months. We've basically had no income for nearly a year by the time the competition kicks off. And you add those things together, and it does make it very difficult for us.
You mentioned the crowdfunding page there. Can you just give me an update on how much has been raised so far? And you mentioned some celebrities there as well. You know, who's got involved?
Well, there's a couple of things there. So we're just over 7,000 in the public domain. In the private domain, we've got substantially more than that, which is great news. Now, I'm sure this one's a bit of a parody, but Michael Jordan has donated £23, which, as you'll know, is his shirt number, and said, "I hope it's not the last dance." Now, I've got to be honest, if it's the Michael Jordan, then we're in a great space, but it's probably not. But fortunately, on the rugby side, Jason Robinson's got involved, Austin Healy's got involved, Lawrence Delalio's got involved, Ben Kay. So honestly, it's really quite humbling the way the community has tried to pull together for us.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Fantastic to see such big names involved. And it just shows how much this club means to the community, and how much of a shame it would be if you can't play next season.
Listen, I don't just think it's about Ampthill. I think it's about the championship. And what we're asking government to do is treat us the same way they've treated football, netball and cricket. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think this is government's fault. We've been interacting with Sport England, Deloitte and the Government Winter Survival Fund. I think there's been a process failure, and I don't think the investment board of the Government Winter Survival Fund have paid any attention to the information we've provided them with, and that unfortunately has meant that we've been caught in a very difficult set of circumstances, and we've been clipped by a bit of friendly fire.
Yeah. And what's the biggest cost? I think in your statement you mentioned the testing. Is that going to be the biggest cost for you going forward?
Well, it's a combination of those things, but testing is obviously massive. If we test once a week, it's £20,000 a month. If we test twice a week, it's £40,000 a month. Now, the RFU at this point, on top of a year of no income, the RFU pays £2,500 a month towards running a professional sports team. Now, you don't have to be a genius to work out. That's going to be pretty difficult to fund 40k a month with no income.
And how much of a struggle in general has the pandemic been for you without having, fans coming to the ground, etc.?
I think the government have genuinely been helpful in as much as we could furlough a number of our players. We've had some small grants, and to all intents and purposes, we've put the club into mothballs other than the professional side of the club. And the professional side of the club has returned to 50% training at this point and 50% furlough. So, listen, we don't underestimate the challenges it's done for society, but for us at Ampthill, it has been very difficult. But the support of our volunteers, committee and members has been, fantastic.
How much money do you realistically need to get through this season? Whichever avenue that comes from, whether that is grants or loans or...
We applied for a grant of 360,000. The championship was allocated £9 million, which is 3% of the government winter sports recovery fund. So for the thousands of people who watch championship rugby every week, which of course I don't think they'll be doing this year, but they could be live streaming. And all we want for championship clubs is to be treated the same way as other sports. And as I said earlier, I think it's probably a process failure rather than a lack of support from government. I think government have been supportive, and if they listen to this interview, then hopefully they can understand the predicament that we've been inadvertently put into.
Even before the pandemic, the championship clubs had their funding cut drastically. Do you fear for the future of the league?
I think there's a lot more positivity coming out of Twickenham. Obviously, the RFU are potentially on the edge of achieving tens of millions of income for the sale of the Six Nations competition to CVC. And you'd hope at that point we can have a real reset. And there was a plan around earlier last year developed by Edward Griffiths for a competition called the English Championship. And we'd hope that the RFU nurture, support and grow the importance of the championship, very similar to the way the French Rugby Federation are growing their 3 professional leagues. We certainly can't survive as just an elite sport here. As an elite sport, I think there's a danger we vote to become irrelevant if we're not careful.
Yeah. And finally, if the funding doesn't come, does it make sense for you to take part in the championship next season, or do you think it should be scrapped?
Listen, it's from Ampthill's point of view, we've been put in a really difficult situation. The response of everybody has been overwhelming, and we're trying everything we can to get to the start line. We've had 5 promotions in 15 years. It's taken us a long time to get here. We've only participated for half a championship so far when it was closed early for the right reasons. And we're just desperate to get to the start line. So anybody listening, any help you can provide will be greatly appreciated.